Hi all, our notable game today features two heavyweights from the European Cup currently being played in Skopje. So Vladimir Kramnik playing white against Veselin Topalov playing black. So they're both in the top 10 currently in the world FIDE rankings. Topalov is actually rank 3, Kramnik rank 8. So Vladimir and Veselin do not get on since Toiletgate, the World Championship match Toiletgate. So they do not shake hands before games. And actually there's a YouTube video showing that they shake hands with everyone else, in fact, before the game, except each other. So some high drama here. Fierce rivalry and hatred, it seems. So anyway, d4 from Vladimir Kramnik. Technically, I think they might be in violation of the FIDE rules of chess, actually. You're supposed to be shaking hands now with the opponent, but maybe they have an agreed exception with FIDE or something. But anyway, Veselin Topalov kicks off with knight f6 as black. We have knight f3, e6, and now e3. Okay, it closes in the bishop, and it looks as though this is a little bit on the insipid side. Super solid, or is there going to be some aggression? Surely not to close in the bishop totally with this triangle. Maybe c4 is going to be on the cards. We see c5, bishop d3. So the identification on this is Torre, London and Cully systems, so some sort of variation on them. b6, castles, bishop b7. White now ventures the move c4, which is actually the most popular in this position. Black takes on d4, e takes d4, bishop e7, knight c3, still quite well trodden territory. d5 is the most popular move here. If black doesn't play d5, I think, well, this has been seen before as well, but there's actually d5 here, which is interesting, and black needs to tread carefully, but anyway, that's a separate story. The most popular move is actually d5 from black, stopping this d5 from white. So here, white now plays c takes d5, knight takes d5. We're still in well-trodden theory. Knight e5 now prompts black to castle. There are dual threats here. Bishop b5 check would embarrass the king, actually, because it's difficult to defend d7 with this knight on e5. Also queen h5. So black does castle here. This could be annoying to create some weaknesses. So black castles, and that's the most theoretical move. Now, in this position, actually, there are two key moves, queen h5 and queen g4 in live book. They both have about 110 games, in fact, roughly the same number of games. A little bit more with queen h5, 115 in live book. But queen g4, very popular. And it's a very interesting position, actually. The threat, bishop h6, is actually, this is actually quite a lot of venom for black in this position after queen g4, but it looks like, you know, fairly in-your-face attacking move, just facing the king here. But if we examine some possibilities, we'll see some dangers here hidden. Black played f5, which seems to compromise the e5 square, and the dark squares in general you'd think would be a bit weaker after playing a move like f5. It's not something you really want to get out of your way to play quite often, to weaken e5. But if we have a look at this position, if rook e8, let's have a look. If black played rook e8, white actually has bishop takes h7, the forcing sequence. So 2 pawns so far for the bishop sack. And after knight takes d5, the queen can't take because of this rook. And if bishop takes, we have bishop h6, threatening mate. And if takes, then there's knight g6, mate. So bishop h6. Sorry, bishop f6, and here rook e1, simply with the threat of rook e3, is actually really strong. Black's really tied down here. It's actually crumbling for black, this position now. Imagine like rook f8, there's knight g6 check, and then knight takes f8. It's crumbling because of this. So that's pretty direct stuff and brutal. Just if the rook moved there. So it's quite fascinating. Queen g4. And if you imagine another move, g6, again, bishop h6, forcing move, knight takes g6, seems to smash black up quite easily after bishop takes e8, Yes, crushing blows. Yeah, otherwise black's just going to get mated, of course, on g7. That's why black seems to have to tread carefully in this position. Another possibility, king h8. White can play queen h3, forcing move. And if f5, knight g6 picks up the exchange. So yeah, black plays what looks to be a necessary move actually after queen g4. But perhaps actually knight f6, that seems to be very, very popular here though as well. Maybe that does the job of defense here. Knight f6. There's been games with this and continuing with this. And it looks a fairly sharp position, sharp gambit for white. This looks on the scary side, but it's meant to, well, yeah, this needs to be investigated. So yeah, theoretically, it seems knight f6 has been played 73 times, but f5 in this game. Now the reason I've laboured this f5, it is the start of maybe the dark square complex being sensitive. So to provoke f5 is quite clever. Queen e2 now. Bishop f6. We see bishop c4. Rook e8. Rook d1. Okay, knight d7. Bishop b5. And this is uncomfortable for black. But it's sealing the hole, it seems, on e5. But the thing is, it's prompted black to give up the dark square bishop. So even though the hole on e5 has been solved, the other dark squares are potentially quite vulnerable with this dark square bishop still lurking around in the position. And in fact, now after queen e7, white transitions this into an opposite coloured bishop scenario. And the attacking player is quite familiar sometimes that opposite coloured bishops is like having an extra attacking piece. The opponent is definitely more vulnerable here on the bishop that you have as a general rule. So we have knight takes, bishop takes. Queen h5 provoking more dark square weaknesses now because bishop g5 is on the cards. So it's an uncomfortable pin here. What does black do? He can't kick away the bishop. Runs into bishop g5. And then it'll be attacking the rook after. So something like this, we just take here and we win this knight. So it's uncomfortable that further dark square weaknesses have essentially been provoked now after queen h5, g6. Now we see queen h6 sitting on the dark squares, ready for bishop g5 still. Rook ec8, bishop g5. Black can't go for the exchange of queens with his knight hanging. So queen f7. And now white really transitions it to the opposite colour bishop scenario. And it's very instructive actually here after bishop takes, queen takes. The first thing white does is lock down against queen g7's, bishop f6. So these pieces are installed here, looking at the dark squares. And what's instructive here, you might be curious about this c file. Isn't this of value strategically for black to double rooks on the c file? The thing is, with this pawn here, it's not so dangerous for coordinating with the bishop on d5 just yet. And white can actually do a rook left here to put more pressure on g6 and h7. So we see black playing queen f7 right now. And white frees up responsibility on the a2 pawn here by playing b3. Inviting white actually to just have an extra tempo for the c file. Or even to use c3, you might think, wasn't it interesting at least playing rook d3 here? Very curious to play b3 because, you know, what of rook c3? Why didn't white, if he wanted to do the rook left, play rook d3 here? This is actually a very good question as well, but white doesn't want any liability on a2, so he actually makes his queen side safe. He doesn't want to lose any endgames, and actually it's not just rook d3 though, so maybe this is the point. Rook d4 could be used anyway if you want a rook lifts to h4, we see black now playing queen f8. The queen goes to f4, which blocks, it seems, the use of d4. So we see now rook c2, and here not only there's a rook left possibility, there's also the possibility of undermining the pawn chain, which would weaken black on the h file. We see h4, so it's like a direct kind of attacking plan, but with basically the trump card of that dark square bishop that black hasn't actually got. So black takes that c file though, so giving up control of the c file. h5, white doesn't care. Queen e8, and now we do see the move rook d3. Black challenges that, but it's just supported now. And you note that the pawn's not being lost, so it's without any possibilities of counterplay. Now, I bet you're dying to ask here, if this rook lift is so potent, why didn't black play rook c3? I think we've got to check this out. If rook c3, is there some technicality here? Turns out there might be actually a problem with trying to stop the rook lift. hg, queen g5. There's something more advanced going on as well, more subtle. If black tries to defend, say queen f7, then we have rook d4 anyway. We can use this rook lift. And if king f7, there's actually some resources here, like taking here, e6 check, and this is dangerous. All this while black has possession of the c file. This is extremely dangerous for king's safety now. For example, here queen f4 check, and the king is being attacked quite viciously in this variation, and in fact that's a tactical liability. So the exchange set opens up the bishop on the reverse diagonal. It's subtle stuff, but you might think, why not stop this rook d3? It's more difficult than it seems, this position. So anyway, queen e8, and in fact, okay, so rook d3, black challenges there, rook ad1 without losing the a2 pawn. It's very difficult, this position, and I'm sure commentators will criticize this next move, but it's actually difficult because this exchange sack pops up in other variations. Black played g takes h5, and intuitively we're going to think, well, the trend surely is going to be in white's favor because of this open g file now. But in fact, if we look at this, if black played what seems to be a logical idea, let's support the rook with b5. Again, this position is full of venom. Rook takes d5, e takes, rook takes d5, and this is actually technically quite crushing, it seems, whatever black does. As an example, say here, rook d6 securing down c6 and e6 against the black queen. Black's kind of paralyzed here. Say this, queen d2. And what's happened here is the queen is actually coordinating with the bishop. So not only we have a passed pawn, we have dangerous threat to the black king here, like queen d5 check now. And black actually crumbles in this position. For example here, black's crumbling. Here, this looks like over. If queen f7, white just takes, and then the queen wins. Is queening, it doesn't matter about the check. That's going to be winning the rook. And if king f8, then this is murderous. Bishop e7 check. You see in these variations how the bishop and queen complement each other, so they become a fierce attacking complementary weapon. So the exchange sack here is dangerous even if black didn't play g takes h5. But in the event, g takes h5 was played here. So all this giving black that control of the c file. Rook takes d5 is now played. This exchange sack is dangerous here. e6. So it's not just looking at the rook. Also this pawn's there for the taking. The queen can't leave the g file if if queen takes, then queen g5 check, and this is just horrible. For example, here, check. And actually we can take here, reverse taking the rook. It's a tactical liability, even if we're not mating the king. So that's a clever point of this stuff. The bishop is looking at the rook. The queen can help to a battery on bishop takes c3. So black plays the rook away from that. Now rook takes d5. Very difficult position to try and defend. Black snaps off the e6 pawn. But now check, and we have rook takes f5, 3 attacking pieces working together. Equal on pawns, but these pawns are fragmented. How does black defend this? From an engine perspective, black is busted here, by the way. It's +5. Black is busted. In the game, Topalov tried rook f7. We have check, which wins the queen, because after rook e5, we're pinning the queen. Black tried rook c6. Now, on move 36, white didn't take the queen, which would go into a pin. Actually, it wouldn't be that good to take the queen here, because this pin, black can take with the e-rook to keep h7 protected. So this position might actually be almost tenable for black. Difficult but tenable. But no, white plays even stronger. No rush to take the queen. He plays queen takes h5. So a new pin is created, 2 pins, better than 1. And black is helpless here. So white is essentially unpinned, so he can take the queen without losing the bishop. And black resigned here. For example, rook d6, we just take the queen, and then now we can freely retreat the bishop. And this is just hopeless. Yeah, the 2 rooks are no match for the bishop and queen. So queen takes h5. I thought actually this was a particularly instructive game. How the dark square weaknesses were created from the opening. First the f5 and then later the g6. And white just safeguarded a2 in advance. There were various rook lefts. But it seemed even if black in advance tried to cover the rook d3 rook left, there was always the exchange set lurking, which actually made rook c3 in itself a tactical liability for the bishop on f6. Eventually black felt the strain and played g takes h5, but it seems as though black might have been in grave difficulties by that point in any case before the g takes h5. The exchange sack just seemed very, very powerful, creating a very complementary weapon of the queen and bishop together, and the rook still on the board. It was just too much. Black ended up losing the queen. Very instructive attacking game there from Vladimir Kramnik against the number 3 in the world, Veselin Topalov. Hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.